In 1957, just a greenhorn, leaving school and looking for a job, going into broadcasting was something that I dreamt of. But that's only meant going into radio, because my old school, Holy Child College, still on the same site in Obalende, 2 streets away from the old NBC. I still can't forgive whoever changed the name to something else that is being called now FRCN. Because if the BBC remains BBC 100 years after the founding fathers, dreamt of starting television, radio from, all the war years and learning a bit from America. It all started from America. Because we were taught about all this. Every time they took us from school to take part in, school's debates on radio, we just walked across. It's all in Obalende and Ikoyi, Balende/Ikoyi. So I dreamt of doing something along the line. And then one of my teachers left us high and dry. He went to be a newsreader on radio. Marie Tabio, who later became Mrs. Irikefe. Then we had people like Tung Adedoyin and SOUQ. We used to listen to them on radio on the old, you wouldn't know anything about that now, the rediffusion. It was just, a little box in your home. And everybody looked forward to either listening to the 7 o'clock news in the morning or 6 o'clock or 7 in the evening. So that was all I had to do with broadcasting. And who was going to take me there was another matter altogether. Who would take you, little 16, 17-year-old girl, into broadcasting? But one had been bitten by the bug then. So, and only God knows where whatever dream you had was going to lead to. We read poetry, we did radio show, stage shows in school. The Catholic schools were very good for that. And my old school, just celebrating 150 years of its existence, just down the road from here on Broad Street. The nuns, they were all white nuns. No Nigerian nuns at the time that we were growing up. So all the dream they had, this kind of dream that we have now, going to England, but they were coming here to teach us. So I had learnt a lot of poetry, I had taken part in Festival of Arts, and I had gone to, the biggest hall we had then was at King's College, which is also down the road. Means of transportation was your SS foot. No BRT, no bicycles or whatever. So we did it all just walking around and learning from our teachers. And of course, our mentors were the nuns, like I said. So in my wildest dream, there was no way that I was thinking of going into anything like broadcasting. That is going back to answer your question. But they had a lot of plans for the girl child. And not along the religious lines now, but actually they came to actually engender this whole idea of pushing the girl child forward. And not just me, a lot of us. People like Mrs. Francesca Emmanuel, they also went through the whole gamut of all this dream that I'm talking about. Television itself was brand new in the world. I have to talk about radio because that was what I knew as a child. But television, when it started, we didn't even know. Maybe in America, and then it went to Australia, and then to France. No. France came after Nigeria. You wouldn't believe that, would you? That we were number 6. America, Britain, Germany, Australia, one other country, and coming now home to Nigeria, where you cannot help but give a lot of credit to the dreams of people like the late Chief Obafemi Awolowo and one of his ministers then, Chief Anthony Enahoro. So that's how I believe this whole package was placed on their laps and sold to Nigeria, to the Western Nigeria government. On the radar were lots of other people like me who had dreams about becoming Miss Nigeria. So maybe that will now give you a little background about how I took part in the Miss Nigeria pageant, Western Nigeria, and I became Miss Western Nigeria. Somebody must have fine-tuned some little knots somewhere and said, okay, you probably might be able to deliver. Because you are being interviewed when you go before the panel of judges. And somebody must have said, okay, that's a good material, you can come and take part in this. Before then, we had other people, Anike Agbaje Williams, Poliola Sokwe, who were working on radio. My dream was to work in radio, but then I missed that. And I was nursing, that dream of still going to radio. Never knew what television was all about. So maybe that answers your question, I'm not sure. But I took part in the Miss Western Nigeria pageant and I won. Took part in the Miss Nigeria contest and came second. So that meant that I didn't win. And if one of the, maybe the prize was to go on TV, it wasn't even there. It wasn't written into the, program that whoever did this, but the person was going to go to England. And so Helena Yemeluna, who won that contest, went to London and fulfilled her own dream. But I was still biting my nails, waiting for when I'll be able to get a job. There were other things that girls could do. You could be a nurse, you could be a teacher, you could be an assistant, a dental assistant. All those were things that young ladies, can, fulfill their dreams along those lines. They're still there. You still have young ladies. Mrs. Muritala Muhammad, the first time I met her, she was a dental assistant. Little did we know that her husband was going to be the head of state and she would be first. So you see, lots of things were there for the young girl who wanted to learn, who had the talent, and who wanted to perform, and who wanted to work hard. But now I don't know if girls want to work hard. All they want is, the table to be set, and then they come and, partake of whatever is there. It wasn't too difficult at the time that I was picked as one of the people to come and appear in WNTV. The audition was actually carried out before my time. I got involved in so many other things, trying to get a job, something to secure, something, to alleviate poverty. There was not too much poverty in Nigeria at the time because people could still make a living for themselves and, get by in society. But I was lucky that I had an aunt who was a nurse in the hospital in Ibadan, UCH in Ibadan. And she was married to an Englishman, and the man's friend happened to have been the man, Mr. Mathers, who was brought as one of the technical partners to WNTV. So we met at a dinner party, and just as you and I are chatting, I was only 18 plus. I was 17 when I took part in the pageant. So by this time I was growing up, and I thought I was a big girl. So I opened my mouth and I said a few things. And the man looked at me and said, "How come you are not speaking with a Nigerian accent?" And I didn't know what he meant because we were taught at St. Mary's to deliver whatever lines we were given to deliver. The Festival of Arts, I came second after an English boy from Corona School. and I was given a beating for coming second. Not because I didn't perform well, but because I forgot to courtesy. And one of the judges, I think, who was then Mrs. Abayomi, Lady Abayomi, said that I delivered my lines very well. So if I were the Lord of Tartary, I would do this and that and the other. So I came second. And when I got back to the school, the nun, Sister Marieta, said, you were not paying attention. So whatever you do in life, you have to be consistent. You have to perform well. The way we're trying to do now, the way we're trying to project your voice and whatever it is you have to offer with a lot of humility, not, trying to show off or to project your own image, but whatever message you have to deliver, you have to make sure that it is well delivered. The following year, St. Mary's Convent School, which is my old school, which is 150 years old in existence, went to the same King's College Hall, and we beat a lot of secondary schools. We came first. Pied Piper of Hamelin. Have you ever heard of that poetry? Pied Piper of Hamelin was about someone who wanted to get rid of all the rats in Europe. And all he did was to play the pipe. So that is what we were more or less doing. That's what you and I have felt. Being a Pied Piper, trying to get off all the ills in society. That's the main job of a broadcaster. There's so many things happening in the country, and it's only TV and radio that binds the country together. If the country falls apart tomorrow, you will rely on someone from radio or from television to make the announcement, to introduce the head of state who had just won the election or the one who had just taken over. It's a huge responsibility. At that age, at 19, we had to introduce people like Chief Obafemi Awolowo on TV. We had to introduce people like Akintola, Oladoke Akintola, as the premier. And when everything broke down and it all went into smithereens, they brought in Chief Majekodumi as the administrator of the Western region. All this happening before our eyes. There were no other stations in the country except WNTV. And we were there, so we learned quite a lot. In fact, I believe that the whole country revolves around broadcasting. And if you are part of that organization, how would you feel at my age, at 80-something? As young people, perhaps you don't know all this history that I'm telling you about. It's a long, long story. But when you sit down, you have to put it all into perspective. You see that, well, some people are actually meant to be in different positions. Some people are meant to be doctors. Some people are meant to be nurses. For those of us that are in broadcasting, it's a huge responsibility. It's a passion. Sometimes you don't even know how you got there in the first place. Or somebody may have discovered you. It's like being in Hollywood in those days. Someone has to develop, you have the talent, the latent talent, and then somebody will discover you. So that's how I was discovered by Mr. Mathers at a dinner. I was put in that place because I had won the Miss Western Nigeria contest. If I hadn't done that, I probably would be somewhere in the kitchen washing plates, washing all the dishes. So there you are, if that answers your question. Well, there's no one that actually picks someone and puts you plonk without... I mean, of course, if you don't have any experience on the job, you have no business being there in the first place. But if I had taken part in Pied Piper of Hamelin towns in Brunswick, I was only 13. By famous Hanover City, I was speaking like an English person. When I was only a Nigerian, little girl, being nurtured, by my mother, who was a seamstress, how would you ever get there? But you already have that background. that solid background on the rock, as it were. So by the time I was ready to go on TV, I had learnt from all the other, people that I mentioned their names earlier, like Anike Agbaje Williams. And I wouldn't say it was easy, because you always have that, butterfly fluttering in front of the camera or wherever. I think I took to television like I was meant to be there, with all humility. If I had been groomed by all these nuns that I have mentioned their names, they came to Nigeria to serve the people. They were not earning salaries, To become a nun, you have to take the oath of obedience, chastity, poverty, and all that. So you're not earning a salary. But whoever is there now is thinking of how much money he's going to get from whatever take comes from here, there, and yonder. So they taught us well. And nobody said you're going to go and appear on TV or you're going to be on radio. But just do what you're meant to do properly, with a lot of sense of responsibility and diligence. And that stands at the back of your mind. That goes everywhere with you, wherever you go in life. Even when I was nursing a sick child, my late son was a sick child, and I was meant to take part in Verdict 79 with my colleagues Kerry Ahmed and Adamu Aogi. They all came with me to the hospital, which is just next door here. And then we came back and mounted the podium and continued our business as if nothing was happening. He didn't die at the time, of course, but the job must go on. That is always there at the back of your mind. So my first night, I wouldn't say that I didn't have any jitters, that I was not nervous. But I was able to deliver, and I think that was the staying power. That was what kept me going, because other people came on board. I was not the only one. All the members of the board had their own, little nephews and nieces that they wanted to project on TV. They all came and they couldn't make it. But Anike and I kept going. And if you gave me a script now, I think I would try and... We didn't have too many, teleprompters. Well, I was very good at, I had a photographic memory. So I was able to get hold of the script, and in less than 60 seconds, I'll be able to deliver it straight to the camera. That was one of the assets that I had also, which was God's gift. It's not by own might or whatever you think you have. You have the talent, of course, but also there has to be some other little bits of gifts that will help you to project the image of a professional. A lot of controversy. There is hardly any TV, radio, movie personality that can scale through that without any, because people are watching, people are trying to find their own little, bits of criticism here, there, and yonder. You can't be a goodie, 2 shoots without, any, how shall I say it, problem here, there, and yonder. So everybody has their own way of looking at people. People say, well, what has she got to do? She went to take part in Miss Western Nigeria the other day. So what's the big deal about her? And then somebody will still add their own salt and pepper here and there. But I was lucky that I was being nurtured by someone like T.O.S. Benson, who was then our Minister for Information. And he felt that, everything should not stop here. There were things happening in America. He made sure that my name was there. I was at the inauguration of President Johnson, Lyndon Johnson. And we commanded a lot of attention there, myself and my colleague who came from Lagos, the station in Lagos. And for the president to notice that there were two black people sitting behind him at his inaugural ball, I think it was very overwhelming for me because not many black people had invitation to that event. But Charity Adadevo and I were there, and he stood up and shook our hands where we were sitting behind, 3 rows behind the president. Then Kennedy had died, and we were still not seeing, we were still feeling very hot about, the loss of Kennedy. And here was the new president coming up. We were not particularly keen on being welcomed by him. But then, things like that happen to you, and it makes headline news. 2 black people, they didn't even say Nigerians. They thought we were from Ghana because some journalists came around and said, how is your man Nkrumah? And we said, no, our own Prime Minister is Tafawa Balewa. They never heard of him then. But then they had to go and carry out their own study and find out who Tafawa Balewa was. And of course, the whole country was very proud of us that we went to actually stole the show at the inauguration of President Lyndon Johnson. So many other things happened. When I came to London, the British Information Office, they were trying to look for someone to host their program. That host happened to be around, so they picked me to host their program. But you don't ad-lib on any of those stations. Everything is written out. The questions, even your answer will be written. You can change it around a little bit. And they make sure that you said the right thing at the right time. So that was how we were able to gain attention. German television also invited us because they were interested in Nigeria. See how the German Chancellor came to Nigeria. That was what happened at the time. In 1963, we had just become a republic then, from being an independent station in 1960. By 1963, we then became a republic. And we were chosen to go and appear on German television in Berlin. And they wanted a little bit of culture. So Benson had his own band. So we were chosen to go and represent Nigeria then. Nobody knew who the ambassador was, but they wanted to know who was presenting something on TV. So that's how important television has been. And that, in fact, we were the first television in the whole of Africa. The very first station, WNTV, that was a call signal. WNTV, first in Africa. There's nothing like that now. Nobody wants to know whether you are first or second. But the station that is being run in Nigeria, I think, has the largest number of stations than any other country in Africa. We have about 21 stations, and now it's still, still counting. And yours is coming on board, and so many others. I think next to America, Nigeria should have been the best country for television broadcasting in the whole world. There's not so many countries in the world that has as many stations as Nigeria. We only have to put our heads together. We only have to find joy in whatever we're doing. Sometimes when it's raining, people say, oh, it's raining, and they feel very bad about the rain. But if you look closely, behind that rain, there will be sunshine, there will be something else coming on. You see some silver clouds coming during the rain, but Nigerians don't have the patience to wait for that kind of thing. That's what television teaches you. If you're in the studio, you don't know what's happening outside. You just get on with the job. That's what we were taught. We were taught not by Nigerians. Even when we started, we couldn't go on air and ad-lib. There was always someone there, Mr. Blackledge, to write the script. And if you can commit that to memory and deliver it, they're home and dry. It's not everyone that has a gift, not everyone that has a talent. It's God-given. And if you listen as a child at 17, 18, 19, at my own age, I learned from school, and I was able to impart this into the job. So within a few months, we got double promotion, all of us, because we were doing very well. Anika Agbadi was excellent. Olasope was superb. And so many other people reading the news. We were the first female to read the news. Women were not allowed to read the news. Nigeria started it. BBC wouldn't allow a woman to pick up a script and read the news. We were already there. So that's how we were able to gain this global attention that you mentioned. It's not easy. It's not easy. Like I said, when we were taught by, not by Nigerians. But somebody came along the line and said, we don't have to speak like English people. You can just carry on and use your own parochial background. If you are a Robo man, you can speak English the way you like. That was his own idea. Because he didn't believe in us doing all this la-di-da and trying to, say things the proper way. But that watered down the standards a bit. Because then everybody, maybe he had a relation who wanted to appear on TV, and he wasn't allowed to because he couldn't speak like Ikenanda Goba or Bodelalade and things like that, or Friday Fude or Mike Nahuru. So somebody must have gone to him and said, because he doesn't speak like any of those people who were taught by, foreign teachers, people who had learned, people who knew what a DJ, we had a Bible then, that you had to pronounce your words correctly. So he came and said, now that I'm DG, I'm not going to tolerate all this, your English way of speaking. And some other people, of course, that watered down the standards. That's not our own making. We were still ready to continue the way we were doing, but then they pushed us to the background. But there were others who were able to perform well. Ruth Benamesia, Opia, Siene Oweber, and of course Bimbo Oloyede, who was born in England. If you already employed those people to deliver the goods and to present your programs, you're not going to sack all of them because they speak with English accent. I don't see how that can be an offense. Cannot be, guilty of speaking English well, like the English people. But they then brought out other people. And you had the head of presentation. I became head of the presentation after I came under Guba. And you're trying to prepare your roster, and you wanted to put such people online to read the network news. They say, okay, bring somebody who can speak like the Radije Didu and do a little bit of Ewe on the side. It's part of our culture. So that is what is happening to TV broadcasting in Nigeria. It's all very interesting. So, this cultural milieu and bringing, a touch of Nigeria. Nigeria is doing well. In that aspect, in the music world, I think we're leading. Some of us who grew up on Handel's Messiah and Mozart, we have to sort of put our hands behind our back now and watch, all the way things have turned around. And Nigerian music is doing well. Afrobeat is raining everywhere in the world. So really you can't find faults with that. So when they watch a bit of Fela and his children and all his grandchildren doing well, then listen to the channels on TV, you have to take what you get from there as well. If somebody can wake up one day and say, why should your station be called the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation? I say it should now be Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. Tongue twisting. Takes a long time to come to terms with. If everyone wake up in the morning and say, this is Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, you have the call signal. Da 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 da. This is the Nigerian Broadcasting whatever. How are you going to put that, into context with the new one? First of all, when you wake up, you don't know whether you are even coming out of the right side of your bed or not. You're going to have to face your audience and say, we are no more the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation. We are now Federal whatever, which you don't even know where the man, who came up with the idea. He didn't even consult you, didn't even put it to test. If the British corporation, they are going to change from BBC after 100 years, they will ask the whole nation, they will say, where are we going to take this from? They will ask everybody, they will do a census, they will do all kinds of things, carry out all kinds of tests to see whether people will accept it from them. No. Nigerians are very hard and cut and dry. This is the way I want it. I'm the head of state, so I can change everything now and, all of you can start marching forward and march back again. Soldier go, soldier come. I think Fela would have been a good head of state for Nigeria because he would have got some people marching the right way. So, I think that is what has happened to this country. But we will still settle down. The soldiers that have been marching since, they will do attention one day. And then we'll be able to sort ourselves out gradually. I think we're going through the right process now. People are beginning to find their own feet. If things go around, price of goods go up, Nigerians will find a way to come to terms with that. When we were growing up, everything was done. We won't say according to the colonial rules and regulations, but at least there were standards that were set down for you and things that you had to toe the line. This is the proper way to do things. But if somebody says, no, let's turn around and turn it upside down. First stack. It's the only thing that has moved to the whole world from Nigeria, that shook the whole world. That brought everybody attention to see what Africa has to offer the whole world. It happened here on this soil in Nigeria. I was a member of the ceremonial committee. I remember the opening ceremony. There were about 15 heads of state. We've never had anything like that since then. That is what we should ask ourselves. Every head of state that takes over from Nigeria should find out again. It's not from broadcasting that you can get the answer. You can get the answer from technocrats who had worked in all those areas. What happened? How come it couldn't happen again? It's like Armageddon. Every country was represented. Every culture was represented. Miriam Akiva was watching us and called us at the station one day and said, even from the way we linked programs, they couldn't expect that it could be happening in Nigeria. We received phone calls. People were sending us bottles of champagne on the air. The links. Bimbo Oloyede was there with me. I was at the opening ceremony. I was yanked from there to come back to the station from, interacting with the head of state or with our head of state at the time to come and man the station because what was phenomenal. How come we've not been able to do it? 77 years, how long ago was that? I was only 37 years old then. I'm going on 90 now. It hasn't happened again. We should examine that. Even the head of state that was there is still alive. Let us ask him again. Let us put him down and say, Oga, please explain to us what happened. Some people came up with a theory that the symbol that was used was fetish, that is what has happened and Nigeria has turned upside down. If that is acceptable, it may be superstitious in your eyes, but let us find out. Let's not call the Babalawo. Is it bad that it is a Nigerian that carved this image? And it is making news outside the world. Now you say, no, it is not good that Nigeria should be able to project an image that would attract the whole world, something that will bring everybody on their knees. After the first attack, we were still recovering, just batting in the glory of first attack. What's this artist, the blind one, who was not part of it, who didn't believe in it? He came and had his own first attack, all on his own, from America. Stevie Wonder, he came with his own team. We had to mount all the cameras back in the studio for him. He had his own 7-day festival here in Nigeria. What prompted him to do that? Other people came. They wanted to know what was happening in Nigeria. What has happened? We couldn't have another festival since then.
What do you think went wrong?
Nothing went wrong. Everything went so well that people wanted to destroy, our own Nigerian people wanted to destroy the glory that's this whole thing that's emanated from it. It hit the whole world. People are asking, when you go to Britain, you say, what happened? Why aren't you having? I had a friend who was head of the, he was from the British Guyana, a black guy. He was friends with everybody. He knew all Nigerians. Said, what happened? Why are you going to have another festa? Professor Ian Hall, he keeps asking me. Even if we can't have it because it was very expensive anyway, Nigeria had all the money. Even though we had a coup after, it was first of all the brainchild of Gawan. And then Muritala came on board. Muritala was killed. But in spite of that, they couldn't kill that dream of having a festa in Nigeria. If we are able to bring out all those programs again, I think we'll be able to answer those questions. I'm still alive. There are a lot of people who will still want to know the answer to that. It's a very, very brilliant question that you have asked. I think if it was another country, we'll set up an inquiry and say, what happened? Can we resuscitate this whole dream? Some of the tapes that we had then in WNTV, some people put them in one place and set fire to them because they felt maybe somebody in their religious organization said, you are the one projecting all these things, so Nigerians are bringing idols around. Who gave them the idea to make the idol? It's God now. It's from God. Whatever thing you were able to put together. The Bible was put together because God loved the world so much and He wanted us to learn about, things that had gone out from the time of Adam and Eve. God loved the whole world and created Muhammad and said, put people together and let them say Allah Akbar every day, morning, noon, night. God created so many wonderful things for us, so many images that we can imbibe from, so many things that we can learn from. People want to come and learn about our country. Instead, we say, we want our sculptures back. What are you going to do with them? You don't have a museum where you're going to put them. to make them thrive and people come here to Nigeria. It's a good idea for them to come, but if they learn about your country, what your people have done over the past 2,000 years. 2,000 years of Nigeria image was put together by the BBC. Nigeria went and tore it up in shreds. He tore it up. He said, what are you doing with that? What you call bad belly. I don't know if anybody sang a song with that title. If we maybe start from there and say, what do you do with your own bad belly? Some people, National Stadium. There is no theatre in England, in London, that I know that have gone to watch plays and things that have not been in existence for over 500 years. So many studios. We have one big one, the dream of Nigerians. And now we want to go and do banking there. We want to go and do trade. It's supposed to be for culture, for our own culture. Lagos State will be dragging federal government by the neck and say, no, we own the theatre now. And we want somebody to come and do something there. If we can only put all these things behind us, the evil that people have done in the past, people like Julius Caesar, when they were writing all those, when Shakespeare was writing all those things. Things like that have happened in the past. We should examine them. Get people like Wale Soyinka to sit down and rewrite the whole history again. If they ask me questions like you're asking me now, I will be there to answer. Because I saw it all unfold before my eyes. The image of Nigeria will come tops. All the stations in Nigeria should get involved and do stories on this question that you've asked me. A very salient question, and I love it so much. That might be able to revive the image of this country and let us know where we are heading, in what direction, and bring us back to really the point of salvation. Well, I haven't seen it. I must have mentioned it somewhere, I think on one of the channels. When they was trying to build the scandal around it, and I said, and I tried to put the record straight, that wasn't really what happened. And that, it was from, I think it was from a book that was written by one of the wives that said that I was party to his breakdown of their marriage. And I was trying to put the record straight that wasn't really the true picture. I have due respect. I have to, bow wherever I come in the presence of a president of this nation, past, present, or even present, yes. I hope I'll still be around when we have others coming on board, but I was taken aback that the head of state would ask me a question that, because in the past, we were in the studios when the head of state came, and we were given scripts. If there had been, there had been several coups, and it's always the presenter or the station, like that, the managers that take the brunt of the whole, the issue when things like that happen. You don't know who's coming. You don't know how many jeeps are going to be coming in. You don't know how many, what you call all those heavy equipment that they drive in as they are coming into the studio. You don't know where they are going to shoot the station down. Nobody knows that. It's only the people who have worked during that period that can relay those experiences. Sometimes you're at work in the morning, by the time you come back in the afternoon, the government has changed. And if you haven't got maybe your ID card, you won't be allowed into the station, or somebody can throw you in, or into jail. So all this had happened in the past. Nobody has told any of these stories. People like Segun Lushola or Dr. Kolade. Somebody might come and say, so has happened. I was driving my former husband to work in the morning. I dropped him at the station. By the time I reached home, there had been a coup. Murtala had been killed. And they were under siege, the whole station. Just imagine that kind of scenario. Things like that had happened in the past. But Nigerians don't have that sense of history that wants to sit down and say, well, we want to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Of course, we'll pray that it doesn't happen again. And you wake up in the morning and somebody is announcing something else, different from what you have. A colleague of ours had been, pushed into something that he wasn't aware of. Those are kind of situations that have happened in the past. But this one, we were all dressed in ceremonial costume and trying to, I was the only one that was asked to stay in the presidential, what do you call it, special area that is demarcated for head of states on issues like that. And all of a sudden, the president is following me all about. And I said, this is getting too close for comfort. And I said, what's your name again? I said, my name is Julie Coker. I was trying to play innocent, that I didn't know what was happening. He said, hey, how much did this your dress cost? Can I have, sorry, sir. I don't think I'm the proper person to answer that question, sir. Yeah, you don't have answer. It's a bit unprofessional. I mean, not in the profession per se that we mean, but I wasn't prepared for that kind of thing. So I must have given a rude answer to that. And then, before I knew it, Ade Lanwa, who was then the head of Navy, came to me and said, you have been very rude to the president. The president said, he asked you a question and you couldn't answer. I said, good morning, Mr. President, sir. Because when we introduce them on TV, that's how we introduce them. We're now going to be addressed by a new head of state, Mr. So, sir. And I said, you should go and ask the president of SOUQ. I'm sure he has a record of what the question is asking me can be answered, better answered by the president of SOUQ. If he finds that unbearable or rude, then either that one is not doing his work well or I'm not doing my work well and I don't belong here. But I carried on regardless. Shortly after that, another top army officer, Joseph Garuba, that one was the tallest man next to Ufwe Bonye or the one from Mali. And he said, Julie, I know you can be rude at times. I said, not on this occasion. This is a wonderful occasion for the whole nation. And I'm trying to be my best behavior. And he said, the president said, I'm being very rude to him. He said, I know you, maybe you can say things. And I said, no, I never. He asked how much the dress cost. And I don't think I have an answer, which may contradict what will be on record if you really examine it thoroughly. I was getting very nervous at the time. So I dropped everything and disappeared from the scene, and I never went back again. But the thing reverberated right down to all the committees and members. My late auntie, what's her name? Kentebe, which was a lady, commodore of the Navy. She said, Julie, I think she heard that she was going to be sacked that day because the naval officer sent to her and said, you are the one that did this. And I said, can never, God forbid, can never reach me because I'm not in the forces. I'm doing my own job here as a professional broadcaster. I think it has reached a stage now where whatever you say might be taken against you, because there are so many people going to court now and people sent to jail, but things were not as bad as they are now, because some of the gory stories we hear and people being, penalized and sent to jail, I think it has reached an astronomical level that it's something that's actually, maybe it was there and people did not want to open the canker worms and let us see what is really happening. In my own case, it was a deliberate attempt on the part of an aunt of mine who felt that there's no child that should continue going to school at a certain age. And they were trying to arrange for me to get married to somebody. And it's a tradition of our people, in Delta, to find out whether the girl is still a virgin. Then they go and look for one old man. It's not this, the one that is happening is child abuse now. I don't know what to call that one. There are other cases too of children being sold into, prostitution and apply this a trade that by some madams, which is not really acceptable. But there are other areas that maybe some parents cannot pay for their children's school fees, so they send them, into child labor or whatever. I think every child should be given a chance to have, proper education. If Awolowo can start free and fair education to children, whether all genders, boys and girls, see what the results that have come out of that. But in some other parts of Nigeria, they believe that that it's not acceptable in their religion, and so they still keep the children down and send them into early marriage. And a lot of people have dealt, people like Dr. Simi Johnson, they were in the forefront of that vanguard to liberate the children who have been kept into further at age 13. And when they have children, they are not able, either they die, premature deaths from, being too early to go into pregnancies and have the children properly and things like that. Different stages, it's a very serious issue that actually I think has been well looked into, not by the United Nations or by, but Nigerian government itself should look at it more, more serious terms and try to find how to deal with it. But that's something that happened in some homes, which is now coming out now, which in the past, members of the family would not allow maybe a woman that is a victim. The child is a victim, but there are other, things that sort of trigger down the line, like a wife, for instance, who is watching her husband, trying to abuse children that are under their care. And the children definitely cannot, rise to the level that a child who's been abused at an early stage cannot continue with her education.
All right.
So I have been involved in issues like that because I was affected as a 13-year-old when an aunt of mine felt that I should stop going to school. But I was rescued by another aunt. So I was lucky at the time. Not many people have been able to, get through all this kind of trauma. I was lucky that just at the time, the man was busy talking to some other people, and it's like somebody being kidnapped and another person coming to your rescue. So I was lucky at my own, to escape that unscathed and get on with my life. If I hadn't gone through, maybe I would have been having 13 children. It's good to have children so that the population will multiply. But then you have to make sure that the children are able to, get on with their education. And when you educate that child, is able to look after other children. I've raised so many children in the process, because I was able to earn enough money to take care of members of my family. And that is what everybody should sort of, try and rise up to that challenge. Our chief, Folami Koka, was the Babeto of Lagos. So, and I used to accompany him to the palace of Yekon. And someone then said, well, Yeto, why don't you let... He wanted his wife to be the Yeto, but she rejected it. She said she didn't want to because, she thought they were going to perform some fetish. It wasn't really fetish. My brother now turned to me and said, Julie, do you want the title? I said, no, it's not for me to say, because I wasn't terribly keen. But he said he was going to carry out all the preparations. And I said, well, if you're going to do that, why not? And the late Oba Adeyinka Yekon graciously offered me the title. I accepted and went through the ceremony. So I've been a Yeto of Lagos now for getting on 40-something years. We only have one majesty in England. And that is one of the oldest institutions in the world. Some other countries are getting rid of their heads of their traditional rulers. France doesn't have one, for instance. There are some countries in Europe, I think in Finland, that still have, kings and queens and all that. But Nigeria, every little village, every doorstep has one title. This is the palace of the so. It wasn't like that in our own time. You had only one Oba in Lagos. Now you have so many. You have several Obas. This one claiming this and that. Itiosa, whatever. After a while, there's going to be a clash. Maybe not in our own time. So if they're playing traditional roles, somebody will lay claim to some title that belongs to somebody else and another one. There's no end to it. So let them stay the way they are now. If they want to multiply, that has nothing to do with me because we don't have any say in that. It's not, because you can say now that this station is trying to sell this idea to be propagating an idea that should not be. I don't think anyone should play any constitutional role. If each one has its own, in the states, at the state level, they take it, I think it's rotated. After a while, one steps down, another one takes over at that level. If they want to go and attend the meeting at the House of Assembly, that's up to them. But at the federal level, I think, no. No. I don't approve of it at all. Because then you will have some woman coming on and saying that he's the one that is entitled to the title. It's not, I don't know whether any African country actually accepted that sort of thing. So Nigeria shouldn't start. Nigeria at certain points in any of these things. Once Nigeria starts, other people will start. And before you know it, the whole thing will skyrocket and another war starts. We have enough problem on our hands as it were now. No, we are lagging behind. It's such a terrible shame that we only have about 4 women in the Senate. It's ridiculous. We seem to be dancing backwards. In that regard, I think we're falling short. Totally. There was a time when there were more. There doesn't have to be more women in the Senate. I think there should be maybe 50%. Not even 30-something affirmative, whatever that they're going to Beijing to talk about. There should be more. There should be more women participating in politics. I don't know whether it's because, no. I don't want, I just believe that we should have more women in politics. Because women are more sensible. Women are glamorous, they come out looking beautiful, but their contribution to national issues, I think, more. Look at a man who went to beat up somebody in the house, and then he says he's a hero. Hero of where? That kind of man should not be allowed to even come and address the press. Maybe the press find it funny, humorous to feature somebody like that. There's no woman that will come on TV and speak like that. If you examine every single one of the men, they all have different issues. Some of them have issues about wives and men and things that they have been doing, or they are corrupt and they have been taking money, dipping their hands into different coffers. No woman would do that. I think women are more, serious-minded, and they address issues the way they should be addressed, and they will take more care of issues that affect the nation, girl-child issues, health issues. The men don't even care about health issues. They don't even want to know what's happening. The men even wear bigger agbadas than when they are going to the house. First of all, they should cut down on the amount of clothing that some of them wear. They spend more time thinking of their image, how they're going to appear. Since television has now gone into the chambers, you find that they spend more time, on things like that. And it's ridiculous. We watch other countries, the way their parliamentary issues are being addressed. We're not learning anything from that. We shouldn't be learning from them. They should be coming to learn from us if we're doing the things we're supposed to be doing properly. But if women are really at the forefront of all this, I'm sure that they will be able to calm all those hot issues that erupt sometimes in the houses. With worry, my mother. I was brought up as an Echekere child by my mother. I was taught to sing Echekere songs, to speak Echekere well, to address issues that affects the people of worry. My stepfather, who also had a hand in my upbringing, was an Echekere man. So I think that takes care of all those things. Well, I was brought up in Lagos, so I have this dual kind of nationality, and I knew my father came from Egba land, but I didn't have much to do with him. I only have connection with the family, like, Toye Koka, who was my uncle who took care of me as well, but he was too busy doing other important things. But occasionally when they're having issues in the family, I'm invited like a stranger. But because I speak Yoruba very well, and I passed all my exams, and I used to do all my programs in Yoruba in Ibadan in those days on radio, WNBS. So I can still hold my head high in that regard. I think I function very well. It's like the King of England. He sometimes goes home to his Greek family. When, Prince Charles, when he was prince, he used to go on holidays with his family from the Greek side. And in fact, it looks like some of them sometimes when they are together. So yeah, I think it's allowed. Well, one of the first one, my 40 years in TV, which is actually showcasing all my life in broadcasting from the early stages, which actually should have answered some of the questions, was a textbook in Kenya for many years, because the minister came to Nigeria, and my DG then, Mohammed Ibrahim, had a whole box full of the books. And he gave them to the minister. And when the minister got there, he requested for more copies of the book. I never got paid for it, but I was delighted that they found the book so interesting. So maybe I'll get someone to serialize the book on TV sometime. We tried to do it some years ago because I cannot be telling the stories all over again. This is about maybe another 30 years story. Again, we've done another sort of edition, My Life in the Limelight, which is the latest one. So if you have time, if you create space, you might be able to tell the stories and take it stage by stage. That's why I sell the book, and also, we get some media attention from sponsors and get things going. The sky will be the limit then. Well, eat well, eat the right food, type of food, eat chicory pepper soup, or anybody else who's cooking pepper soup now, because then you don't have too much oil. I think that damages certain things in the tissues. And if you want to avoid having cancer, there's nobody in my family that has ever died of cancer because of the type of food we eat. So get someone, to prepare. There was a time when chicory food was being prepared in the museum, and people used to go there to collect the ingredients and the menu, and people lived well. So people are eating Chinese food, which is good. It's healthy, and lots of vegetables. I recommend that for people. I'm not saying that very good health, but I still walk about on crutches. I don't know, my knees are not functioning very well. But still, if you say you paid me compliments, I accept it. Thank you very much indeed.
Congratulations on the new channel, and I'm happy to be here. The Omniverse is imagined as a collaboration platform. So it's a platform that, as the name suggests, is bringing together ecosystems. So it's like an ecosystem of ecosystems, aggregating aggregators and community leaders who are able to bring together their communities together to a platform. So the summit in itself was, while it was a big event and a heavy lift for us and the team, and I have to thank our team of volunteers. We had a team of about 40 full-time core volunteers that delivered the Omniverse. So one of the key things about the Omniverse is that it's designed to go beyond an event and designed to be fully something that people can engage beyond the summit. So we will be launching our digital platform. We have about 70 community partners already, including a number of government institutions. So to answer the question, there's public-private partnership within the Omniverse. There's regulators, there's government departments and agencies, there's ministries. But more importantly, there's diverse sectors across the economy coming together with the understanding that tech is the biggest enabler for development across all sectors, and that if we can drive collaboration, we can scale. So that's the ethos of the Omniverse. Collaboration is the superpower that we're trying to bring to the fore. That operating in silos has not paid us, but if we come together, understand that technology affects every sector, then we think the Omniverse is here to stay. Nigerian companies, Nigerian associations, global associations, and when I say associations, it's from things like the Nigerian digital artists who have 3,000 members, right, in the NFT community, the Visual Artists of Nigeria, the Society of Nigerian Art, the AfriLabs, which is the biggest innovation hub network on the continent in 54 African countries. ISN Hubs, which is our core partner, which is the biggest innovation network in Nigeria, innovation support network, with something like 189 hubs in 30 states in Nigeria. And these are primarily private sector driven platforms, from aggregators who are major promoters of major platforms such as Lola Shone from Ake Book Festival, Choma Ode from AFRIF. We have a lot of these people who are either on our advisory board, they are co-chairs, or they are community partners, because what we're building is beyond any one person. It's about collaboration both at the top level, but through the line down to the bottom. The role of my council is, first of all, to be the primary sort of mandate is to infuse Nigerian arts and culture into everything the Nigerian government does, at state level, at federal level, and to input it into schools, education, and everywhere. So in that sense, to make arts and culture functional and front line everywhere. This will involve the foreign minister, making sure it's embedded in our foreign policy, in our embassies, in the government policy, in every sector. So we're literally going to be reaching out to collaborate to all government at all levels, all other agencies, MDAs, ministries, federal government and state government institutions, to see how we can find common ground. Because obviously we don't necessarily have a lot of money, but I feel we represent the real crude oil of Nigeria, which is the IP that the Nigerian people create. That IP they create, even if you valued it at $100 per Nigerian, that'd be something like $20 billion. And I believe each Nigerian is worth more than $100. So my own estimation, it's limitless, right? So what we have to do is we have to rethink how we imagine ourselves, rethink our own possibilities, and therefore from there, take off by pushing that agenda. But it's not an agenda for me alone. It's actually an agenda for all of Nigeria. Because when we put it front and center, it means we're putting the Nigerians front and center. And we put the Nigerians front and center, I think we win. I think historically you will find that the federal government and the governments of Nigeria have not funded heavily these sectors. They funded the heavy industries, the military-industrial complex, heavy infrastructure. But the funny thing is, whilst Africans will say, oh, this is grammar, what are you people talking about in arts and culture? What you find is that the West, right, for 500 years has dominated the world. How have they dominated the world? Through narrative. Okay, but what do we complain about? Narrative. But we haven't invested in narrative. So if you don't invest in telling your own story and owning your own story, why are you complaining about how you're perceived? So I think it's counterintuitive, and it's about time. And I'm very pleased and very happy that Nigeria now has a full ministry focused on this one specific issue. Because the truth of the matter is, we are older than time itself. We come before Christ. We come before the entire Western hegemony. We are actually the origins of everything, of innovation, of technology, of science, of education. But if we don't believe it ourselves and we don't express it, how can you expect anybody else to believe it? Well, I think the difference is that as a creative entrepreneur, there's really nothing to stop me, right? I can take all the risks. I don't have to worry about anything. I can decide, win or lose, we're doing this thing. But of course, as a public official, I have rules and regulations I have to go by. I have a boss. I report to people, and I have KPIs I have to deliver on. So there's a difference in that regard. There's a difference in bureaucracy, maybe a difference in response time, but there certainly will not be a difference in my personality. So I think it's really about how you perceive what these things are. For me, it's an elevation, obviously, and it's a privilege and a pleasure to serve at this level, to do something that I believe in, to do something which is that I believe in Nigeria. I believe in Nigerians. I know our ability. I think we are world class. I don't like all this, it's good for Nigeria. I hate that. So I think for me, that is what's important. And to have the opportunity to try to deliver on some of the things we've been trying to do from the private sector for the last 25, 30 years. So there's nothing new for me in that regard. But of course, the position is new. Being in the government is new. But with a lot of support from friends, family, professional colleagues, and other people in the industry, plus my co-DGs and the minister, hopefully we'll do well. We're under the Ministry of Art, Culture, and Creative Economy, and that's very, very powerful because it means Nigeria itself has taken a decision to own the agenda. Hopefully I have a good time, have a good tenure, and I don't make any enemies. And well, for me, if you leave a place and the people that works with you have good things to say, if they feel better about their work and about themselves, and if the brand that you're now leading is now appreciated by the people for what it does and how it brings it to the table, then I've done my job. I think Afrobeats has already established the fact that we are originally Nigerian, or some people say arrogantly Nigerian. And it was intentional. We built this thing, and it was intentional because we're not going to ever apologize for being Nigerian. We're not going to apologize for being black. We're not going to apologize for being African. And that's front of mind because, you know, when you do show business, you have to validate it. So we validated the show maybe at least 10 years ago. So now we're in the business phase. So when you see the exit of Maven Records with UMG, you see Iwaju coming, Comic Republic with Universal Studios, you begin to understand where we're building to. And when you think about where we're coming from, where there was no infrastructure, no funding, no support, and I think part of what we hope to do with government at this time is, because we come from the sector, we can collaborate with everybody in the sector. We don't have to talk at them, we talk with them, we build with them. And together, I think it's limitless. You know, Nigerians like to say the sky is your limit. I think it's limitless. There's no limit to the whole situation. One of the things I talk about all the time is what's the difference between Thor and Shango? Thor is approaching $50 billion in revenue. Shango's broke somewhere outside Lagos. And that's a lack of imagination on our part. That's a lack of us delving into the richest thing we have, which is our mythology. Our mythology is endless. If you look at the Marvel universe and the DC Comics universe, the Orisha are basically the same thing as the X-Men. But the Orisha, some people are still afraid of them, whereas the X-Men are north of $100 billion in revenue. So I think we have to understand and reimagine our mythology, our history, our stories, and how to bring them to the world in new formats. It's not just film. It could be live action. It could be gaming. There's so many different ways to action these things. And when you do them, and you do them right at the right level, as Iwaju is beginning to show you, our stories have always been world-class. Our characters are world-class. What we have not had is the resolve and the confidence to finish. But I think that is coming now. For me, I think it's still the fact there's more to do. My young brother, Misan Harriman, is nominated at the Oscars, the first Nigerian nominated for a director for a short film, because I know what that will do for the next generation of Nigerian directors, right? So for me, there's still more to do. There's so much more to do. When we see our first $100 million movie in the global box office, we need to celebrate it. When you win a Grammy, you need to celebrate it, because these are stages that we were locked out of. The technology and new media has allowed us to evade these spaces we were not even invited to. But now we're beginning to enter them and dominate. So even when you do that, you have to do it with grace and dignity, not with arrogance. And that's something that some of us have to learn. But the truth of the matter is, the greatness of the Nigerians is just beginning to come. And I feel strongly that this century, we're already in the African century, and the soft power that we hold here is what will define the future of the century. I think the most important thing, the first thing to think about is IP protection, because the minister is working strongly, intellectual property. The US, if you take the state of California is probably in the top 5 economies in the world, and 70% of the economy of California is driven by intellectual property, by 2 core industries: Silicon Valley, which is coming out of Stanford University, and Hollywood, which of course is the music and film industry. Now, that is for anybody that says, oh, what is this thing that they're talking about? We don't understand it, it's grammar. The grammar is the money, okay? The narrative is the money, the story is the money. So any of your children or your nieces or nephews that have talent, visual art, performing art, arts and crafts, adire, all of these things that we've been taking as vocation, they are occupations. They are extremely valuable. And with digital technology and platforms, we can scale these things and generate incredible revenue. The point being that Nigeria has so much to bring to the world in terms of these things. I think Nigerian cuisine is going to be on the level of Chinese and Indian cuisine worldwide in the next 10 years. And if you understand that, then you understand that the Indian restaurants in the UK, as far back as 2009, were generating more money than the UK automobile, shipping, and metal, steel industries combined. That's just restaurants on the high streets. So that is why we must invest and we must put our energy into this sector, because this sector will provide the jobs, provide the revenues, and provide the global dollars that everybody's looking for. Oh, I think it hasn't even started. The Maven Records deal is giving you an indication of that. The reason why that valuation of $150 to $200 million has been done is because of the upside potential of Rema, who's 23, and Arya Starr, who's 20. So they're looking at the fact that in 10 years' time, these guys could have generated $1 billion each. Do you understand? So it's a safe bet when you already have a built global talent at 23, when it normally takes years and years and a lot of money to build the talent, right? So what has happened is that we Nigerians have been able to build global talents, global following, with a percentage of the money it takes people in other places to do the same thing. So because of that, the value and the valuation is much bigger, right? So I would say the Afrobeats wave, it's not even a wave. It's been going for 15 years already. So when you encounter it is when you encounter it. If you think it's an overnight success in 2024, that means you were not around in 2008. 2006, I'd say, is a good time to think when the sort of continental, because we took Africa first, working very closely and collaboratively with South Africans, Ghanaians, and Kenyans. Then we started going into Asia and the UK and America on the black, what I call the Nigerian chitlin circuits, moving through the Nigerian communities. And then by about 2010, begin to come into the mainstream with Oliver Twist and all these kind of records that break globally. And now you have gold records from Oliver Twist in 14 countries. And now, in a situation now where an artist like Ashake can come out of Lagos, speaking a language that is not known to most of these people, and generating, selling out arenas. To become an arena artist, let me tell you, there are only 4 or 5 arena artists from Africa, and they're all Nigerian. Don't take it for granted. I think a lot of people feel that, but what I should tell the rest of the country is that the rest of the continent is also trying to get to Lagos as well, right? It's not just the rest of Nigeria. From Accra, from Luanda, from everywhere on this continent, they're trying to get into Lagos, because if they can break in Lagos, they can break anywhere else in the world. But what I would say is this, from the perspective of my agency, our purview is national and global. We have 10 regional offices. We'll be visiting all of them. And our duty is to spotlight and showcase everybody. So we can't deal with just Lagos. And I think as we go forward, people begin to see the activations and plans coming. But the easiest way to do it, and the way we're going to do our best to do it, is to provide digital platforms to give everybody the opportunity to be seen. Because in this world, we live in the attention economy. So to be seen and to be noticed is very hard if you're not in the place where all the noise is being made. But I know for a fact there's significant talent in all parts of Nigeria. I was watching last week, a gentleman called Ehi Benite was showing me all this content from Jos with these guys rapping, serious stuff. They're rapping in Hausa, they were doing ciphers. And then he was like, what do we do about these guys? I said, just keep pushing them, because there's an audience for everything. There's an audience for everything. Don't be worried about that. There's an audience for every single thing, including the thing that you may be doing in your bedroom, but you think is not important. Somebody's interested in it. My label was a hip-hop label. I even refused to sign singers. There's almost every singer you could name was trying to get us to sign them. And I used to do it based on, can you rap? If you can't drop a freestyle, don't bother, right? It was that simple. And we helped all the other singers get signed to labels that we thought could help them and develop them in that direction. Hip-hop has changed, and obviously it's generational, right? So hip-hop has changed, and everybody approaches music from their own generation. Like, oh, I like this kind of hip-hop or that kind of hip-hop. What I feel is that Afrobeats became overwhelming, and it overwhelmed every other genre here. So the hip-hop guys had to fight for relevance, but the best ones always rise to the top. That's just the simple truth. So I don't worry about that. And I've heard enough guys. I even saw there was a whole Instagram series some guy was doing about a year ago, where he was just bringing out fresh rappers every day from Enugu, from Jos, from Kaduna, from Kano, from Benin. I love it. I think there are incredible MCs in Nigeria. A lot of times they need to focus on doing better songs, right? Not just being a freestyle rapper. If you want to get paid to rap, you've got to do better songs. You can't just do the freestyles. And that's something they've got to think about. You've got to balance the commercial side of it with the business side of it. And what has happened is, to a large extent, the commercial side has won because you've got to pay bills. But hip-hop, it never dies. I think, first of all, obviously from the perspective of I'm sitting in government, so I'm not in a position to tell government what to do or what not to do. But what I can say is this, is that the agency, my agency will be the home for the music industry, for performing arts, visual arts, fashion, gaming, recreation, festivals, culinary arts, film and television. We're kind of a convening agency for the ministry. So we have a lot of work to do, a lot of places to touch, but we're also going to collaborate with all the other MDAs in the ministry and heavily with the private sector and the developmental sector. Because to answer the question, I've worked in all these spaces for, it's not quite 40 years, but it's a long time. I've worked in all these spaces for a long time. In the institution, we have positive relationships to bring to the table to change the approach and to change the destination of where we hope to go. What I will say as well is that the reality of it is we're just beginning the journey. And there are no magic wands. I'm not going to wave a wand and everything's going to be fixed overnight, and neither is anybody else. But we will be bringing fresh energy, fresh ideas, a fresh engagement, and we're obviously open to collaboration. And that's really important for me to say that, because people feel there are gatekeepers, but in my agency, there are no gatekeepers, right? We're not interested in whether you have the biggest reputation or the smallest reputation. We're interested in the value you're bringing to the table. Because the truth of the matter is Nigeria is massive. There's a lot of stuff going on in Nigeria. We're going to try to aggregate those things and bring them into one platform so that even as Nigerians, we can know what we're doing. Because to be honest, if you don't know and you don't follow, there's no way you can know 90% of what is happening even in Lagos before you talk about the rest of the 36 states in the FCT. So for me, from my perspective, the journey continues. The objective remains the same. We want to see Nigeria win. But in order to do it this time, I don't think government should ever be disinterested in the nature of the industries in which it is operating. But we also don't need to be owning the space. We want to enable, partner, collaborate, and see how we can push people to do more. Because there are already people doing a lot, and maybe they haven't been recognized, they haven't been brought out, they haven't been celebrated. All these kind of things we can help to do, help to get news stories and people to bring these things to the fore, right? Like I said, today, a Nigerian who was nominated for an Oscar as a director, the first Nigerian. It's up tonight at the Oscars. It's not news in Nigeria. That's a problem. We have to be able to tell the stories that are of greatness of our people, because if you don't do that, you can't inspire anybody.
We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas Touch, and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix, and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job.